Hey guys, Leify here, today with a new concept I might do periodically if there is positive interest. As you guys know, I spent many hours in the lawless open world called the Outlands in Albion Online. And because of this, I get to fight many different groups of players which all have very different characteristics to them. They'll vary in size, with the groups being anything from 3 to 30 players. They'll vary in tactics, from being ganking squads to roaming squads to entire ZVZ forces. They'll vary in goals and objectives. And the thing we are interested in the most in this new concept, they'll vary in the type of weaponry they use, which is something that changes from time to time as the game gets balance updates, making for various nerfs and buffs to different items. So what's good and popular in Albion Online at the start of the second quarter of 2022? Starting with healing, there is one particular weapon that can be seen in about every group that's out there, no matter their size, which is the Blight Staff. Any group that's not running Blight right now is shooting themselves in the foot because of how strong this healing weapon currently is. The ultimate ability of this weapon cannot be interrupted, so as soon as the healer decides to get this big healing AoE going, it will go through for the full duration. And although crowd control effects such as stuns won't interrupt it, you can use force movement abilities to change the position of the healer. However, since most of the Blight Staff users also use the Knight Helmet, which gives immunity to forced movement effects, they have that bit of counterplay covered as well, leaving any Blight Staff user with the Knight Helmet immune to pretty much everything when they pop their helmet and ultimate together, which by the way also makes for additional movement speed, making it much harder to catch and keep up with this nature healer. Without a doubt, the strongest healing weapon you can play right now. Another noticeable healing weapon from the Holy Tree this time is the Great Holy Staff. This one has only 18 seconds cooldown, which is almost half of every other healing ultimate. So you can use it more often during a fight, which is a huge advantage on its own. What makes this weapon so powerful, however, is the fact it knocks back all enemies hit by 21 meters, which is an enormous distance. It has a great amount of AoE healing for your team and also increases resistances, which just emphasizes the level of support in this weapon. And considering the low downtime between use on your ultimate, it just makes a lot of sense for this weapon to be a top tier meta pick right now. Just like the Blight Staff, this weapon can be used in a wide variety of content in different group sizes, so if you don't play nature and play holy instead, you definitely want to check out the Great Holy Staff. Onto the ranged devils, there is one particular weapon that is very noticeable in any group fight for its huge AoE damage and immense pressure on a very low cooldown: the longbow. Ever since this item was buffed, any group that is dealing with other groups of enemies made sure to have at least one longbow in their team. You'll sometimes even see multiple longbows in only one party because it's just that strong right now. The longbow itself already has very low cooldown at only 15 seconds, and combined with the secondary ability Explosive Arrows, it makes for insane AoE damage at any location you decide to cast it on. Combined with the Assassin Hood that lowers your cooldowns by 15 seconds, which can't be found on the majority of longbow players for a good reason, this weapon simply makes for massive AoE pressure throughout any fight. This weapon again is very welcome to both PvE and PvP content and to the smallest of the groups that are roaming. You'll be deleting enemy backlines very easily with a proper longbow build, which shouldn't even be that expensive because the only item you need that has an actual price tag are the Royal Sandals, which increase your damage even further. Another ranged weapon that I can't pass by in the second quarter of 2022 is the one-handed Frost Staff. I recently made a video on what the best mage weapon is in Albion Online, with the criteria being the most versatile one that's usable in many of the different contents. And it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that that video was about the one-handed Frost Staff. Just like the longbow, ever since the one-handed Frost Staff was changed, it became super popular in pretty much every content out there, even more so than the longbow. It doesn't offer the same amount of burst damage the longbow does, but it has equal cooldown and will slow and root your enemies instead, bringing a whole lot of crowd control to any party. If you want to play a mage class in Albion Online, this weapon currently is your best pick by far, as it is very useful in a lot of different scenarios. When it comes to tank weapons, I feel like there are quite some options that are being used. The one-handed mace, Grill Seeker, Grove Keeper and Camlan are some of the tank weapons you'll currently see on a consistent basis. You also see the occasional heavy mace, which might get buffed in the future and will probably be seen a lot more once that happens. However, there is one tank weapon that I haven't mentioned that's being played the most and can be found in pretty much every group for a very unique reason, which is the Hand of Justice. The unique advantage of the Hand of Justice is that unlike other tank weapons which often have to engage on the front, you can easily get in the enemy backline and drag them towards your team, making for a clap on the priority targets such as healers and clot damage dealers, which often leads to a victory on the first successful engage already. To ensure you can get your combo off, it's good to take the Knight Helmet with the Hand of Justice so you don't get knocked back or feared, and you can successfully use your rush and slowing charge to quickly get to the enemy backline. Speaking about tanks, I must say the meta has been very still for a very long time now. The tank weapons I listed just now could have listed 1 year ago as well, and I'm afraid that the next time I do a meta overview, I'll have a very similar list. But then again, you don't really have more viable options either when it comes to tank weapons in the open world. You have the occasional Soulsight and Morningstar, and that's pretty much everything we've seen in the open world for the past few years. I think that if the Hammer Tree were to receive a secondary ability that provides a different form of utility or crowd control, perhaps one that emphasizes on offense, weakening or debuff, the hammers would have more of a place in the open world. Because the regular hammer, Great Hammer and Pole Hammer all have great ultimate abilities that already have the offensive aspect to them, but nothing good in the primary or secondary ability slots they can actually work with. Onto the melee weapons, there are many of them that are unmissable. The Blood Ladder for the Execute can be found in pretty much every party, just like the Carving Sword or Spirit Hunter, which is there for the AoE Pierce. But I did notice an increase of 2 specific melee weapons in the open world, of which one previously wasn't used at all. That one being the Kingmaker. Now I did go inactive for a while and I feel like I missed something because when I got back to the game, I suddenly started seeing an influx of Kingmakers in the open world, whereas previously you didn't see a single one. I don't know if this weapon recently got changed, and looking back at the balance thread on the forums, I can't find anything recent about it either, but anyone that watched my sword videos before certainly heard me say this weapon has great potential and is being underused. The insane damage on a 3-stack ultimate simply cannot be ignored, even more so because of the knockup it has to it. Reading the description of the ultimate right now, I feel like the damage you do behind you didn't exist prior, but I might be remembering wrong. Nonetheless, the Kingmaker makes for massive damage, and with the knockup it also makes for a very unique playstyle. I'm happy to see the Kingmaker being used in the open world, and if you want to play a big clap melee weapon, you may want to start looking in its direction. The second melee weapon I see being used a lot more in the open world compared to Q1 is the Bear Paws. Now this weapon was quite popular for activities such as solo roaming and ganking because of the dismount potential, but outside of ganking it was barely being used in open world group settings. I would see it in roads groups here and there, but that was about it. And now the majority of the groups in the Outlands have Bear Paws in them as well, which is quite understandable given it has mobility, a good amount of instant damage, and an AoE damage over time that lasts for many seconds, which deals true damage. So it adds a whole lot of pressure to any group fight, especially if you target the clot users, such as healers and ranged DPS, that are more vulnerable by default. And this pressure actually accelerates if you successfully hit at least one enemy target with your ultimate, as it lowers your ultimate's cooldown by 40%. So if you don't want a big clap such as the Kingmaker, but want to apply constant pressure instead, the Bear Paws is a great option for any melee player in the second quarter of 2022. And finally, the support role, which is often forgotten about and overlooked by the average player, but also necessary in any group comp that wants to function properly. In the past few months, there is one single support weapon that secured its place in any well-functioning group, which is the Enigmatic Staff. This weapon's ultimate will create a big shield on your target ally and will scatter the shield to everyone around them. And since it is a channeled ability, the shield will keep refreshing every second up to 9 times, which makes for an insane defense that can save many lives throughout various battles. Larger groups sometimes even run 2 enigmatics, which kind of shows how powerful this support weapon is right now. Although its ultimate ability can be interrupted, you often save your allies with the first tick alone. Everything else that follows just makes your team that much more resilient. If you are going to use a support in your team, no matter the size of the party, you probably want to fill it with an enigmatic. In conclusion, in the second quarter of 2022, the enigmatic is unmissable as a support, the Great Holy and Blight are the top tier meta picks for healers, and the Hand of Justice is a very noticeable tank option that creates unique opportunities for your party. You can't go wrong with the longbow and one-handed crossstaff for your ranged options, and 2 noticeable additions to the melee options are the Kingmaker and Bear Paws, where one makes for a big clap and the other makes for a ton of pressure. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite picks are in Q2 of 2022, and join my Discord if you haven't yet for a bunch of premium and skin giveaways thanks to the creator program of Sandbox Interactive. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.